You walk into a room and suddenly the air changes. A sharp, unnatural scent fills your nose, something rotten, metallic, ancient. Most people dismiss it as coincidence. But for those who understand energy, we know smell is not just physical, it is spiritual. And when certain smells appear without explanation, they are not harmless, they are warnings. Today, I will show you how to recognize the 10 smells that silently announce witchcraft is near, and most importantly, how to protect yourself. When we think about smell, most people reduce it to something purely physical. They believe it's only about detecting the aroma of food, flowers, or the warning of fire and smoke. But in truth, the sense of smell is far more ancient, far more connected to something beyond our ordinary awareness. Smell is a messenger of energy. It doesn't just tell you what is in the air. It tells you what is moving in the unseen. There are times when a scent has no logical source, yet it arrives with force, almost demanding that you pay attention. That is not coincidence. That is your body interpreting energy, and the energy is speaking through scent. Think about the times when you've entered a place and immediately felt discomfort, even before you saw or heard anything unusual. Perhaps the room seemed fine. People were laughing, the lights were bright, but still, your spirit whispered that something was wrong. Often, the first clue of that unease is a smell. It can appear in an instant, sharp, metallic, rotten, or strangely sweet, and while others may ignore it or pass it off as a random odor, those who have trained their awareness understand that the nose has acted as an antenna, tuning into a frequency most people do not notice. Smells have always been tied to spiritual practice. Ancient traditions used incense oils and herbs not because they were pleasant, but because they shifted atmospheres. They prepared the body and mind for the invisible. If sacred smells can elevate and protect, then the opposite is also true. Foul or unnatural smells can warn and disturb. They are signals of intrusion, of interference, of energies that do not belong. When witchcraft moves into your environment, it does not always announce itself with visual signs. Instead, it slips in quietly, leaving traces in the form of vibration, and the body translates that vibration as scent. You see, the physical and the spiritual are not two separate realities. They are woven together. What happens in the unseen world leaves imprints in the seen. Smell is one of the first ways that imprint reveals itself. When something unclean is at work, when an intention of harm has been sent out, the frequency it carries is heavy, and your senses pick it up. Your eyes may fail you. Your ears may not catch it, but your nose is often the first to know. And so, to ignore these signals is to leave yourself blind to an important defense. Many people brush them off, telling themselves, it's nothing, maybe it's just the wind, maybe it's just the pipes. But wisdom doesn't dismiss. Wisdom observes. When you smell something out of place, when the air carries a scent that makes no sense, it is better to be cautious than careless. Awareness sharpens your shield. Recognize that your sense of smell is not just about survival in the physical world. It is survival in the spiritual world. This is why the first step in protecting yourself is to honor what your senses are telling you. The moment you train yourself to recognize smell as a spiritual sensor, you begin to see more than others can see, and you are no longer caught unaware. There are moments when you walk into a place, and the smell that greets you is so sharp, so unsettling, that your whole body reacts before your mind has time to reason it out. One of the most common and dangerous signs is the odor of rotting flesh, the stench of something dead, yet nothing is actually there. This is not a random smell drifting from the outside or from spoiled food in a corner. This is the spiritual residue of ritual sacrifice. In many forms of witchcraft, practitioners call on forces of darkness through offerings, and these offerings are often tied to blood, death, and decay. Even if no physical body lies near you, the vibration of such rituals leaves an imprint in the air, and your senses interpret it as the smell of death. The smell of rotting flesh is not only offensive, it is intrusive. It has a way of entering the nose and sticking to the memory, almost haunting you even after you leave the space. That is because it carries the frequency of corruption, of something that has been broken down unnaturally. When this odor appears, it signals that life force has been tampered with. Something has been used, something has been drained, and the atmosphere around you bears witness to that action. It is important not to ignore this sign, because the smell is not just an accident of nature. It is an alarm bell for your spirit. You must understand that energy never disappears without a trace. When a ritual is performed, especially one that involves animal sacrifice or symbolic death, the spiritual charge released into the environment lingers long after the act is done. This is why certain places feel heavy or contaminated. You may walk through an abandoned house, an alleyway, or even someone's living room and suddenly feel as though death is present. Yet everything looks normal. The scent that appears is your first clue that the place has been marked, that a transaction with dark forces has taken place there. It is also possible to encounter this smell when someone has attempted to project witchcraft toward you directly. In such cases, the odor of decay may surround you briefly, appearing without explanation, vanishing just as suddenly. It might drift through your bedroom at night, or appear when you are alone in meditation or prayer. Do not mistake this for imagination. The body does not invent such a precise, revolting smell for no reason. Your senses are telling you that something unnatural has tried to cross into your atmosphere. The key is to remember that fear gives more power to the presence. Awareness, however, strips it of surprise. When you recognize this odor for what it is, you already weaken its effect. Instead of panicking or wondering where it comes from, let the smell serve as confirmation witchcraft has been attempted, but now you see it. And once you see it, you can respond. There is another scent that carries a deeper and more violent message, and that is the metallic smell of blood. Anyone who has ever been near blood knows it has a sharp, iron-like edge, unmistakable and distinct. Yet when this odor fills the air without any wound, without any cut, without any visible source, it signals something beyond the physical. Blood represents life force. It is the carrier of vitality, energy, and spiritual essence. When witchcraft is at work, blood is often symbolically or literally invoked because it is seen as a way to transfer or extract power. So when your senses detect that metallic tang of blood, and there is no natural reason for it, it is an indication that spiritual violence has been set into motion. This smell does not drift in gently. It pierces, it makes the air feel sharp, it unsettles your stomach, and it often arrives in moments of silence or vulnerability. That is because the energy behind it is not meant to soothe but to disturb, to announce that something has been cut, something has been spilled, something has been offered in the unseen realm. It is a warning that there is an attempt to manipulate life force, either from the environment around you or directed toward you personally. The body recognizes this disturbance instinctively, translating it as the scent of blood, even though no blood has touched the ground. Many traditions of dark practice rely on the symbolism of blood to anchor their intentions. Whether real blood is used or merely imagined, the spiritual frequency it carries is heavy, because blood has always been tied to covenant and sacrifice. When this energy is misused, when it is directed through witchcraft, the trace it leaves cannot remain hidden. Just as you can smell a drop of blood in water, you can sense the energetic residue of this practice in the atmosphere. The metallic scent becomes the signpost pointing to what has occurred. At times, this smell may cling to a person rather than a place. You might be in conversation with someone, and without reason, you catch a faint but disturbing iron-like odor. It is not that they are physically bleeding. Rather, the energy surrounding them carries that signature. Perhaps they have been involved in rituals, perhaps they have become entangled with those who misuse life force, or perhaps they are carrying an energy meant to reach you. Whatever the case, your senses are not lying. You are picking up on what lingers behind the visible. What matters most is how you respond when this sign appears. Do not dismiss it as imagination, and do not sink into fear. Awareness is the turning point. The smell of blood where none should exist is not a random occurrence. It is a signal that the spiritual atmosphere is disturbed, that an attempt to draw power from life itself has been made. And when you understand this, you no longer walk blind. You walk prepared. There are certain smells that feel so unnatural, so out of place, that the moment they reach you, your entire being knows something is wrong. One of the most alarming among them is the smell of burning hair or burning flesh. It is a scent that carries with it a deep sense of unease, because it is tied to the memory of pain, of destruction, of something being consumed by fire that was never meant to burn. When this odor appears without any physical explanation, it often signals the presence of fire rituals. Rituals that are not for light or purification, but for harm. Fire itself is a powerful element. It can warm, cleanse, and bring life, but it can also destroy, corrupt, and scar. In witchcraft, fire is sometimes invoked to activate curses, to send energy quickly and violently toward a target. When this kind of energy is released, the residue it leaves behind carries the smell of what is symbolically sacrificed. Burnt hair, burnt skin, the stench of destruction. The odor comes to you not because anything is physically aflame, but because your senses are translating the frequency of that act. You are smelling what has been invoked in another realm. This particular scent can feel suffocating, even if only faint. It makes the air seem heavy, difficult to breathe. That is because it carries the vibration of suffering. Your spirit picks it up immediately, warning you that fire has been misused in ways that do not bring healing but harm. If you have ever noticed this smell in your room at night, or while alone in prayer, or even passing by a place that seems completely ordinary, do not take it lightly. The presence of this odor without cause is often a mark that dark fire has been called into action, and the space bears the scar of it. Sometimes, this smell comes as a fleeting wave, passing as quickly as it arrives. That is because the energy behind it has been sent toward you but cannot remain. Other times, it lingers, filling a place and refusing to dissipate. That signals that a ritual has taken root nearby, and the energy has anchored itself to that environment. In both cases, the odor is not just unpleasant, it is a message. It is the language of the unseen, reminding you that something has been stirred in realms beyond the physical. And while most would panic, cover their nose, or search for a rational explanation, wisdom responds differently. Wisdom acknowledges the sign. Wisdom understands that the smell of burning hair or skin, when unexplained, is not a coincidence but a warning. It is the evidence of fire used for harm, of energy twisted away from its purpose of cleansing into the realm of destruction. To recognize it is to take the first step in guarding your space and your spirit. Not every warning comes wrapped in something foul. Sometimes, the sign is hidden behind what seems pleasant, even attractive. One of the most deceptive scents that signals witchcraft is the sudden appearance of a sweet, intoxicating fragrance that has no source. It may resemble perfume, incense, or flowers in bloom, but it feels different. It is too heavy, too sweet, almost suffocating. Instead of bringing peace, it unsettles the spirit. This is because the smell is not there to delight you, it is there to disarm you. It is the mask of a spiritual presence, a camouflage meant to enter unnoticed. When dark forces move, they do not always approach with fear and dread. Sometimes they disguise themselves in beauty to lower your guard. This is why the air might suddenly carry the scent of roses, honey, or exotic oils, yet no candle is burning, no perfume is open, no flowers are near. In those moments, what you are experiencing is not natural fragrance, but a spiritual imprint. These scents are used to veil the presence of a spirit entity, often one sent as a familiar or as a messenger. What should feel soothing becomes strangely oppressive, because it is designed to charm you on the surface while binding you beneath it. Pay attention to how your body reacts when this fragrance appears. While your nose might recognize sweetness, your heart may suddenly feel restless. Your breathing may change, you might feel dizzy, unfocused, or even anxious without knowing why. That is because the smell is not truly aligned with peace. It is aligned with intrusion. The body cannot be deceived for long. The soul senses what the nose alone cannot interpret. This type of odor often appears at night, when you are most vulnerable, or in places where rituals have been performed to invite entities into the physical realm. You might wake from sleep and notice the room filled with a thick perfume, though nothing in your house could produce it. Or you might enter a space and be greeted with a scent so strong and luxurious that it feels unnatural, almost as though it has weight in the air. These are not coincidences. They are signals that something has crossed over. The danger of these sweet but sickening smells lies in their ability to distract. If you become enchanted by them, you may dismiss the deeper warning. This is why discernment is so important. Not every pleasant smell is a blessing. Not every fragrance carries purity. Some are masks meant to trick you into welcoming what you should resist. When you begin to recognize these signs for what they are, you strip away the disguise. You see past the sweetness into the true nature of the presence. And once you see clearly, you can no longer be deceived. When these smells appear, the first and most important thing is not to let fear take over. Fear lowers your vibration, it opens the door wider, and it gives strength to what was meant to intimidate you. That is why your response must come from awareness and calmness. Recognizing a sign is not a reason to panic, it is a reason to prepare. It is a reminder that the spiritual world has made itself known, and you now have the chance to respond with clarity instead of confusion. Protection begins with acknowledgement. Too many dismiss these experiences as imagination, as stress, or as coincidence. But denial does not protect you, it only blinds you. The moment you accept that these smells are not random but are messages, you position yourself in strength. You shift from being a victim of circumstance to being an active guardian of your own space and energy. Awareness itself is a shield, because once you can identify an intruder, it can no longer hide in plain sight. After awareness comes action. The first action is cleansing. Just as you would open a window to let out smoke, You must learn how to clear the atmosphere when spiritual heaviness tries to settle in. This can be done with sound, with prayer, with scripture, with oils, with water, with fire that is consecrated rather than corrupted. What matters is not the tool, but the intention and the authority behind it. Darkness does not withstand a heart that is firm, focused, and aligned with light. Another powerful response is to raise your own frequency. Witchcraft feeds on weakness, on fear, on confusion. But when your inner state rises above those levels, you make yourself unreachable. Practices like meditation, deep breathing, reciting sacred words, or simply declaring aloud that your space is protected, all strengthen your frequency. In that state, the smell that once filled the room begins to vanish, because the energy that created it can no longer hold ground. It is also important to set boundaries. Just as you lock your doors at night to prevent unwanted guests from entering, you must spiritually lock your atmosphere. Speak protection over your home, anoint the thresholds, set the intention that no energy opposed to your well-being is welcome. These acts are not superstition. They are reminders to yourself and declarations to the unseen that your space is not open territory. When you learn to respond in this way, the smells no longer control you. Instead, they become signals that sharpen your awareness and strengthen your defenses. They stop being tools of fear and become tools of clarity. The presence that once tried to unsettle you ends up exposing itself, and in that exposure it loses its power. The moment you realize that you have authority over your own atmosphere is the moment these signs no longer threaten you. They serve you.